Good morning, everyone. I hope your voice isn't hoarse because somebody placed a fake noose around your neck, like Bubba Wallace, or his garage at least. And of course, today is Wednesday, and I hope all of you are doing well and you're full and energetic after eating your morning fried plantains, just like me. Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway, so we have today we have a nice treat. My latest article. So this is the second article I've written about the financing issues of Black Lives Matter, and I started using Black Lives Matter with the dollar sign in front because it is basically a massive, massive money grab. And you should be aware of that now. It is basically the fakest cause that you could think of. Obviously, there have been ones in the past. Let's not forget Lance Armstrong. Um, Although I guess he did have cancer, but what the issue with him was, what was he like? He was juicing or something, and he kept saying, "Oh, no, I'm not doping. You gotta believe me." And he flipped out at that reporter. So Lance Armstrong, his entire credibility just went up in smoke after he did admit, I believe it was to Oprah, that he was doping. And I would say that this rises to above that. Okay, it rises way above that. These people, the Black Lives Matter organization, and let me clarify that. People are going to be like, what do you mean, you people? No, I mean the organization Black Lives Matter and all of the other organizations that use its label are fake. They're all basically trying to use this as a cash cow in order to, fulfill their personal goals, possibly in order to, build an institution in order to get more power. And it's been done before. Jesse Jackson did it with the Rainbow Push Coalition. So did Sharpton. Al Sharpton did it with National Action Network. And it will be done again. And it will be done forever, because in this country, in the United States of America, if you form a nonprofit and you find ways to use those funds that work within the law, yeah, you can live a very nice life. And the word nonprofit means little. The word nonprofit basically means that the organization isn't really trying to use the money in order to, build capital. But it's quite the opposite. And people should probably start to really scrutinize who they donate their money to. And by the way, I think a lot of the people who donate to Black Lives Matter, they don't even care if they knowingly are getting scammed. They think that basically this is their alms in order to get absolution for past injustices and racism. So yeah, I don't feel any guilt for saying that the people who are part of Black Lives Matter as organizers and as officials, and the people who are followers of it, can all go fuck themselves. All of them. They can all get fucked. I don't care about the police. I don't really talk to the police. I think a lot of the people who are mad at the police, obviously they, they put themselves in shitty situations most of the time. That doesn't make the police good people, but bad people tend to find each other. And if you're a piece of shit and you think that you're just going to be able to do whatever the hell you want and nobody's going to do anything to you, well, guess what? There's a bunch of assholes that the government hires, and they wear blue and they run around with badges and, beat each other with nightsticks while they have like wet towel parties in the locker room. So yeah, that's my view on police and citizens. I don't think that you should like the police, but I think that people who blame all of society's problems on the police are a bunch of weak bitches. Anyway, so I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, of course, there's the more direct way that people get fleeced by this movement, which is that they go online and they find these signs. So you have Black Lives Matter signs there. You can just type it in. Some of them are on Etsy, which I gotta believe that that's just some dude in probably like Chicago who's making a little money selling them out of his warehouse somewhere. And then there's this one from familypresence.com is Signs of Justice. We believe yard sign. I see this all around the neighborhood here. By the way, I live in one of the most progressive parts of the state, Cuyahoga County. And it basically makes me sick to my stomach. And sometimes I think I ought to move somewhere else. But anyways, it says, we believe Black Lives Matter unless they're in the womb. Some of these are paraphrasing, so I apologize. No human is illegal unless you're, a white picture of Jesus. Then that's got to come down. Love is love unless you're having polygamy. Women's rights are humans' rights unless that woman is still within the womb. Science is real until you get to the chromosomal level. And water is life, even though they put a lot of fluoride in it. And they're making all the frogs gay, which they are. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, unless it's in China. That last one was by LeBron. So yeah, I think this is all bullshit. I think that people who are all the time they're screaming about injustice. Look, injustice is a relative term, right? By the way, today, before we keep going, we want to speak about injustices. An appeals court has thrown out the Michael Flynn case. They said to the judge he has to dismiss it or else. Um, so, so I don't know what he's going to do now. I'm assuming that there might be a way for them to appeal it to the Supreme Court, in which case, I guess, anything can happen because the people on the Supreme Court apparently don't have any sort of anchor to what they really believe, especially John Roberts and that Neil Gorsuch decision last week saying, oh, we need to extend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to gay and lesbian and transsexual and whatever the other people, passion fruit and all that other crap. That was one of the dumbest decisions ever. And that shows why, talking about, some people are saying, oh, libertarians, their philosophy is outdated. No, libertarians know that discrimination legislation doesn't actually lead to anti-discrimination legislation, doesn't lead to a more harmonious society. You need people to basically embrace tolerance willingly. You can't force it upon them. And we're seeing it today. A lot of these corporations today enforce tolerance the same way governments used to enforce intolerance. And you're seeing people basically having to represent imagine you're one of these organizations, working for one of these organizations, and you might be, for argument's sake, a Seventh-day Adventist, right? I believe Seventh-day Adventists are not very big fans of the gay people. And you have the company logo changed to the rainbow flag during the month of June. And they require you to feature it on all of your letterhead and possibly as a badge wherever you're going. So you're a person, in your own personal philosophy, you think of some dude wearing a dress. You're like, oh, that's fucking disgusting. I don't want to associate with anyone like that. That's your First Amendment right. But then your corporation is saying to you, well, your beliefs, your preferences, your tastes. This is really a taste issue. Your tastes are illegal, and therefore your company can force you to wear this gay flag. So, yeah, I don't believe in the Civil Rights Act really being a way to guarantee people their rights. It might have been a stopgap measure that made sense back in the mid-'60s when, of course, the government did enforce things like miscegenation laws. But you have to remember, a lot of those laws were repealed they weren't even repealed. They were struck down by court decisions, right? But here we're having laws basically being extended through court decisions. The law should just say what the law says, and people should be able to act within that law. And look, I understand some people might be saying, I, as a, whatever these sexual minorities are, I have the right to my own civil rights and First Amendment, and people do. But the First Amendment does not guarantee you the right to live in a world that's free of pain. It doesn't guarantee you a place to work. I've had to deal with people who have asked me, when they see, I'd go to an interview, you don't wear like a baseball cap during your interview, so I'm wearing my yarmulke, and they'll ask me whether I have dual citizenship. And it's actually in most guidance manuals I've heard or I've read, you're not supposed to ask people questions like that. It's considered a personal question but I still get asked that, and I've thought, there's a couple instances when I lost the bid for a job because of that, because I do have dual citizenship, because possibly the person thinks that that's not really the type of person they want working for the company. And you know what? if that's the type of company they are, why would I want to work for them? Why would you want to work at a place where people basically don't like you and they're probably going to leave you out of important things? So that it's ridiculous. I think it's one of the dumbest ideas ever to impose these laws where you require people to be basically coddled by corporations in order to balance their insecurities. The Hardy Boys were busy, so the FBI got involved. Did any of you read Hardy Boys, or I know a lot of girls read Nancy Drew. I never read Nancy Drew. I remember that was a huge thing as when I was a kid, and it really didn't make sense because there were like 150 of those books, and yet they never seemed to age above 17. They were always like 17 and 16 years old. It didn't make any sense. And I was like 9 years old. I'm like, hey, how come they never get older? They seem to spend days and days in these places, and the sequence would sort of suggest that they'd eventually reach the age of, I don't know, 35. Chris says, I have always heard Jesus was the king of Jews, so would tearing down his statue be anti-Semitic? Yeah, you could make that argument. Debbie says, I love the Hardy Boys, and I think I read them all. That would be a lot of books. I think that there were two separate series. There was one that was published by one publishing house, and then it got bought out by a different one. So, yeah, that was that would be reading a lot of books. I read all of the Ian Fleming 007 books. That took me a while. Last week, I exposed the redirection of funds donated from the Ford Foundation to the cleverly named Black Led Movement Fund. Okay, so that's my. I don't even remember if I made a video or live stream about this, but this was my first piece, so we might as well review that first. So BLM is blood, lies, and money. What Black Lives Matter has really done with its mountain of donations, and in that one, I really went into this charity called the Black Led Movement Fund that is run from, I believe it is Borealis Philanthropy, which is it's a managed fund. It is basically funneling a lot of the money from the Ford Foundation and a number of other groups, including Open Societies and the Center for American Progress, John Podesta's group. And excuse me. And this one did very, very well. This probably was the best article performance that I've had, at least according to the metrics. I heard some of these metrics are kind of weird, so don't hold me to it. You can take it with a grain of salt if you want. But this was something that people knew about. There was $100 million pledged to Borealis Philanthropy in 2016 from the Ford Foundation, and yet it's been about 4 years and nobody really knows what the fuck happened to all that cash. And the truth is, so a lot of people want to argue that this is a fight about values and about the racial makeup of the country and about whether the justice system will be about grievance or whether it will be about evidence. And I think all of those things, they ring true to some extent. But I think at the end of the day, with all due respect, a lot of this stuff is about money. It's about ways for people to enrich themselves. It's about transferring wealth from very, very large corporations to a number of people who are connected. So yes, I do believe that this is a money issue. I do believe that a lot of people focus on George Soros, and he is involved in this. But the Center for American Progress is very much, they were involved in it at least. Although I didn't find any evidence that they actually gave the money. So one should probably ask, did they actually give the money? You don't think that might be a little funny if they didn't spend the money on this pledged donation that they said that they would give? I think that's a little interesting. How much did they? I think that there was a mix between the Open Society Institute, Soros, and Center for American Progress that they totaled up to $33 million. Between the two, that they pledged $33 million. I haven't seen any evidence that that money was donated, even in phases. But you have to think, a 6-year period pledging $100 million through Borealis Philanthropy. What the hell? That equals up to, I believe, $17.5 million a year. My math might be a little off, or no, it's $16.67 million every year. And yet we haven't seen evidence of that being dispersed through Borealis Philanthropy. And then you get to, so there were, people on the left that were saying, yeah, this is kind of messed up. This is sort of like the corporatization of activism, right? And this was exactly what the Trotskyist World Socialist website said. They said, in response to the upheavals of the late 1960s, a section of the ruling class sought to cultivate a base of support among the more privileged sections of minorities that would be loyal to the status quo. The agenda of these organizations, as underscored by the support of groups like the Ford Foundation, has nothing to do with the real social and economic grievances of millions of workers and young people of any race or ethnicity. And you know what? I will always give credit to people who are open, hardcore Marxists when they point out hypocrisy among people on their side. And if you go to World Socialist website, they're very, very consistent about it. They don't believe in taking money from corporations. They don't do it. They don't, they don't try to run candidates within the Democratic Party. They are fully socialist. They're completely wrong. They believe in pseudo-economics. Marxist philosophy was basically an incorrect reading of early mankind and of the economy. It doesn't mean that you have to basically, get a huge boil on your chest every time somebody mentions Marx, because the fact is that he is a part of the intellectual history of the West, right? But it still means that these people who are hardcore Marxists, they know that these organizations are going to stab them in the back, just like every leftist organization stabs people in the back. E. Michael says most of the BLM movements are controlled by non-black people. There are a lot of non-black people involved in these. There are a lot of them. Sean King was involved. I believe that he's never been given an official position within the main organizations. But in any case, the same week that the new fund was announced, so hold on. On June 11th, the BLM Global Network Foundation announced a $6.5 million fund to support organizing work. But as its name suggests, the money in this fund may not even be limited for use to help Black Americans. The same week that the new fund was announced, BLM's managing director, Kaylee Scales, did a Reddit AMA. You guys know what an AMA is, live discussion thread. Many of those responding torched her for not being forthcoming about how BLM's money was being used, causing moderators to lock their comments. It is possible, however, to see what Borealis Philanthropy has done with the Black-led movement fund's assets. So I want to shift gears for a second. So just to be clear, the first article that I featured today, which is the newest one, does talk about Kaylee Scales' Black Lives Matter global network. Okay, so that's what her organization is called. So what Borealis Philanthropy is a different organization, and they have this fund called the Black-led Movement Fund. So it gets a little confusing. So the initials are BLMF, right? So when you're donating to them, you think you're donating to Black Lives Matter, but you're really donating to the Black Led Movement Fund, and a portion of that money does end up going to official Black Lives Matter. But in reality, most of the money gets spent on organizations like this. So the 2020 announcement of its grantees made on May 27th as the George Floyd controversy was just breaking includes a curious selection. Of 16 new grantees, at least 4 have explicitly LGBT or trans-specific missions. So one of them is the Solutions Not Punishment Collaborative, or SNAPCO, which is a Black trans-led broad-based collaborative. The second one is the Transgender Gender Variance Intersex Justice Project, which is self-explanatory. The third one is the Black LGBTQIA Migrant Justice Project. And the fourth one is the Marsha P. Johnston Institute, which protects and defends the human rights of Black transgender people. According to the bulletin, something called Trans United also received a rapid response grant for COVID-19 from Borealis's Black-led Movement Fund. Another rapid response beneficiary, Fearless Femme 100, which is just a person who's incorporated as an organization, describes itself as a, quote, Black non-binary femme from the South Bronx with a creative energy that seeks to fill every medium it can. So let's just take a look at this one, just to exhibit it. And I don't really take, don't harass these people, don't attack them. Obviously, these people, it's easy to. I do laugh at it, so I will laugh at it, but I'm not going to try to contact them or, try to attack this person just as, just as a means to cause suffering, right? But this is what they are talking about. So I'm Jaya. So Najaya Hurd, also known as Jaya Justice, is a Black non-binary femme from the South Bronx with a creative energy that seeks to fill every medium it can. They/she is a creative herbalist, community/event organizer, and mental health advocate. Jaya has supported art collectives, NYC museums, nonprofits, and universities with events surrounding arts and culture. So I think that should be the other way around. They probably supported her events. Or its events, whatever. She believes cultural experiences that reimagines meaningful impact and connections and is an art form within itself. So let me reread that sentence. I didn't completely understand it. She believes cultural experiences that reimagines meaningful impact and connections and is an art form within itself. Okay, I didn't understand what the hell that meant. They/she is certified in mental health first aid. For 2 years, Jaya has provided mental health advocacy and mutual aid organizing for queer, Black, and brown folks for Cookies Joint, a Harlem-based grassroots group. They are certified in mental health first aid. She has collaborated with wellness organizations like Harriet's Apothecary, the wellness department at the New School, etc. So an incomplete list. She is currently being trained to be a holistic wellness practitioner, a holistic wellness practitioner at the Reciprocity Center in New York City. They are a multi-award-winning design and business graduate from Parsons, the New School. I think the New School is supposedly like a very, very expensive private college in New York City. So let me see here. These are some photos from the Instagram. I think this is the person. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. But yeah, this is who Black Lives Matter is donating significant amounts of money to. Okay, and that's really what what we're talking about here is how much. So are they really making a wise investment for the sustainability of the Black community? Because this person, whatever it is, are they going to be creating a sustainable community for Black people in America? We don't know whether it's going to have kids. They seem to have a very tenuous grasp of the English language. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. So they're getting money. Um, what is ironic is that according to Borealis's filing records from 2017, it already allocates generous resources to the Black transgender community and transgender organizations in general. The Alliance for Global Justice received $207,000 in part to support, quote, this, in part to, quote, support the work of Black trans media. Southern Vision Alliance received $130,000 for queer and trans people of color. Trans United, mentioned above, received $115,000 in 2017. The Transgender Law Center received $102,000. Fusion Partnerships received $33,000 to support the Baltimore Transgender Alliance and Sisters of the T. Justice Now received $30,000 to support the Transgender Gender Variant Intersex Justice Project, which I think is also covered above. Yeah. Black Trans Men Incorporated received $15,000, but in the form in the IRS 990 form, it actually said that it was for the Black Trans Women Initiative. So impacts, we're getting right to that. So don't worry, we're about to we're about to get there in a couple paragraphs. I know exactly what you're thinking. So yeah, there's a lot of money. It should be noted that it's not always distinguished which Borealis initiative is funding which group. So on the tax form, it doesn't necessarily say whether the funds are being taken from the Black-led movement front or from the two other initiatives that they have that are specifically for transgender. The Black-led movement funds page shows other groups that have benefited from it as, quote, Black-led movements. Enlace, an illegal immigrant support group, has received 6 operating support grants since 2016, including $56,000 in 2017 through Communities United for People from the Black-led Movement Fund. So let me be clear about that. This isn't just about trannies getting money from the Black-led Movement Fund, which is supposedly for Black people. Illegal immigrants are also getting it. So Black people who are born here, and you can make the case that they, some people would say, oh, they don't deserve any money for just being Black and living here in the country. But this is money that was donated specifically for that purpose. So I have no problem if people want to donate money directly to Black people because they feel some sort of guilt, even if it's a corporation. I don't personally care. But instead of getting to Black people, it's getting to illegal immigrant support groups. Where were we? The leadership of the group is composed of several labor unions, such as the Service Employees International Union, so it is difficult to know who its, quote, Black leaders are. Its advisory board is composed of 5 Hispanic women, an Asian woman, and 1 Black woman. The only staff member who is Black is a female administrative assistant. This is ironic given that the one population whose labor participation rates have been most adversely affected by illegal immigration is lower income Blacks. It's not the only one, so I think I could have phrased that differently. Obviously, poor white people and poor people of any color are affected by increased illegal immigration. Yet another group that has received no less than 18 grants from Borealis, including 5 from the BLMF, the Black-led Movement Fund, is Freedom Incorporated of Madison, Wisconsin. Their profile states that the group organizes communities to end violence against women gender nonconforming and transgender individuals, and state violence against communities of color by campaigning against the root causes of violence, creating new definitions and solutions of identity and resiliency. But the group's leadership and staff is mostly composed of women from Southeast Asian states like Laos and Cambodia. So there was one woman who was, we could take a look. So there was one woman who is apparently black. This woman, Monker Donway, and then the rest of them aren't. The rest of them just are not black at all. This woman is a black domestic violence advocate. So they have one staff member who's black. This guy's Haitian, so I guess that would count. He's a campaign specialist, but that's not leadership. So then you have Bianca Gomez. I guess you could consider her. She's Hispanic and black. And then you have Monker Donway, who is the child of Liberian refugees. So this is kind of a sort of a very ambiguous issue. This woman came from Liberia. The woman who is the Khmer Gender Justice Organizer and Community Power Builder Coordinator is named Sambo. So I know I might get knocked on the video for that, but that's actually her name. But she is from apparently from Cambodia. So that's not black. So yeah, that's a fact. This is that people have to start really digging into this and start saying that this is a scam. This entire thing is a fucking scam. The National Organization for BLM and the similar movement for Black Lives also receive money from the BLMF. However, one could easily ask why any of the other movements listed above receive anything at all. BLM activists continually stress that saying all lives matter is a tool for diminishing the specific problems of black people, but here's a fund dedicated to black people, redirecting money meant for the movement to immigrant groups that do not have any direct connection to black Americans. And I mean it, okay? If people think identity is that important, then stop fucking mixing it up. Okay, I'm one of these people. I don't really care if people want to integrate schools. I don't care if people want to have interracial marriages. I'm not one of these identity people. BLM is. They're all about this bullshit about how, melanin is like some sort of, determinant of how much success you have in the country. So yeah, that's really what's going on here. We're talking about people who are just full of shit. All they do all the time is talk about how they're trying to redress historical inequities. And then what do? They fuck their own people by redirecting funds to other groups. Okay, that's not redressing historical grievances. And here, this is what Impex was getting at. As for the smorgasbord of transsexual groups receiving funds, only 0.8% of African American adults identify as transgender, according to the Williams Institute of UCLA. Okay, that's how many. She was asking about how many black people. That's 0.8%. So you can do the math. Okay. So this is 0.001% of Americans are actually affected by that, by these funds. So that's 3,696 American people. So that's the number of people that are actually benefited from this crap. All right. Let me make sure. Hold on. Let's do this from the beginning. I know this is looking kind of embarrassing. Okay, so there's 328 million Americans. So we have 328,000,000,000, okay, times 0.14. That's the number of black people in America. So that is 45,920,000, and then that times, hold on. Yeah, it's 367,360. So that's she said then factor out minors. No, this is saying the number of adults, so adult black people. And I don't even believe that. I think that a lot of the people who identify as transgender are just, some of them might be, prisoners and things like that. People that are basically, they're shower toys. So I think it's bullshit. I don't even think it's 0.8%. It's probably like 0.08%. It's bullshit. As BLM rails against the disproportionate effects of the criminal justice system on black, why are they dedicating such a disproportionate amount of money to groups representing such a small slice of the black community? And after so much money was pledged by the Ford Foundation and others, why is it that less than $1 million of funds were actually disbursed by Black-led Movement Fund through Borealis in the most recent available filing from 2018? So yeah, I can actually show that to you too. So these are 990 forms. So I'm going to show you that if you have like a nonprofit that you don't really like and you think that they're misusing money, it's more than likely that their funds are public on ProPublica, or you can go to the IRS site if they don't have on ProPublica or on GuideStar or one of these websites, and you can see their compensation. And on this this organization actually has no less than 6 people with salaries above $100,000. Okay, no, 8 people. So I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you have massive compensation for a number of officers for an organization that is based in Minneapolis. So coincidental, huh? So yeah, this organization, they have all this money. They're making bank every day. You have, Margarita Rubalcava making $182,000. And yeah, that's money that was supposedly for the people of Black America, the Black people of America, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, this is, again, I want to stress, all the people who support Black Lives Matter, all the people who donate to it can literally get fucked, because this is where your money's going to. And I don't think that I have any reason to, look at you with any sort of compassion or anything. You deserve what you're getting. Okay, if because you supported this shit organization, in the end, your house ends up, or if let's say your daughter goes to college and some dude rapes her, a dude of any race, okay, let's say your daughter is, I don't know, whatever race, and she gets raped by a white dude, but because the college has defunded its police, okay, you deserve to literally go fuck yourself, because you've bought into this whole idea that defunding the police will redress the grievances of the black community. No, this is a money grab. It always was about money. Nobody gives a fuck about justice. The people who do give a fuck about justice are the morons who give money to Black Lives Matter, and then they complain when nothing happens. And then they don't follow through and look at where the money's going. So yeah, here we go. The Black-led Movement Fund resources the movement for Black Lives to support its creation of a shared vision and policy agenda to win rights, recognition, and resources for Black people. So this was $1,096,211. So that was the amount that they used on it. Okay, including grants of $987,515. So those were monies that were given to those organizations. So the other portion of that, which was about $109,000, that's a good question where that money went to, right? You guys should this was the first article, okay? You understand, this was the article from a week and a half ago that I'm talking about. That's not even the article from yesterday, which does focus on the money that was used for the Black Lives Matter movement itself. And this was basically, it's not even my work necessarily. A lot of this was done by the Daily Caller, and I was really, bummed out when I saw that they'd already gotten to this. But by the time I was just looking into it, they went into the Black Lives Matter global network. And by the way, I want to put this in the chat, and I want all of you, every single one of you, to share this with your bitch friends who donate to Black Lives Matter, and tell them that they are a bitch. Tell them that the Ben Franklin on their $100 bill, he is now calling you a huge fucking bitch. Okay? That's what you should tell your fake friend who donates to Black Lives Matter. You tell them that Ben Franklin says that they're a ginormous bitch. So we're going to read through this as well and emphasize certain points. For those angry that BLM posers are raking in the cash, consider the fact that at every stage the movement itself has been used as a means for building wealth on a foundation of moral extortion. Movement figure DeRay McKesson came forward in 2019 and admitted that there was a culture of silence within the movement and that he didn't believe fellow activist Sean King's excuses that he had given money back and therefore did not file tax returns for the campaigns that he ran. So just to clarify, we can actually watch this video. Sean King, aka Martin Luther Cream. Sorry, we're gonna have to silence this. This is on Daily Motion, so I can't even skip the ads. In any case, so Sean King had run a charity or actually a GoFundMe for the family of Tamir Rice, who was actually a local child here, who I would say he was murdered by the police, and he ran the GoFundMe, and nobody knows where that money went to. So, he basically was scamming the entire country, and then eventually people guilted him into giving the money back. But he said, "Oh, I didn't file tax returns on it because I gave the money back." Well, no, you're just supposed to add to the paperwork that you were supposed to file in the first place.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Read. Tonight, DeRay McKesson is with us. He's an activist, writer, and host of the Pod Save the People podcast. Give it up for DeRay, y'all. Thank you so much.
It's an honor to be here.
Yes.
I remember when I was Black Excellence so long ago during the protests.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought I'd make it, but
Can you believe we've been around for that long?
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Can you believe the protests were 5 years ago? That is wild.
Yeah.
Can you believe that we've lived this long and for some reason the police haven't killed any of us because, that's not really what police do?
And so little has changed. But anyway, let's get into it. You said that organized storytelling is the best form of activism. Tell us about the last
Organized storytelling is the best form of activism.
time you cussed somebody out. Because That's a cause that we really believe in around here.
What?
Or are you too classy for that now? Are you like, I let the vets do the talking?
Have I cussed somebody out? Not since we were in the street and I was cussing at the police.
Okay.
And it was real unhinged.
That's the type of shit I do too.
Yeah, it was like, da-da-da. And I was just talking to Netta the other day that like Netta, I got arrested twice. One was in Baton Rouge. Thank you for the hashtag DeRay got released party. I think you're one of the people that helped that. I didn't see it till I got out of jail, but I saw it when I got out. The other time was in St. Louis, and they, for whatever reason, a lot of us got arrested, but me and Netta got put up separately. Like we got walked up to the cell separately. And her zip ties are really tight. And I'm like, let Netta zip ties go. And he's like, you need to stop talking. I'm like, I don't know. We had a lot of chutzpah back then. And we turned the corner.
Chutzpah, I believe he stole that word from Bagel Jesus.
Right, and we just sit down. We're like, you know what? Protest inside the jail. We sit down. I get all the white women in me that I can. I'm like, where's your manager? Mind you, I'm zip tied. I'm like, I want to see your manager. He's like, excuse me? I'm like, manager, where's your manager? And
Black people not allowed to say that.
The manager comes out. We zip tied on the floor of the jail, cussing these people out. So there were a lot of those moments that were really incredible.
You recently shared your thoughts on fellow activist Shaun King, specifically his honesty and business practices.
So she's reading off of some teleprompter behind DeRay McKesson.
What made you decide that now was the time to speak about integrity and transparency in activism and fundraising specifically?
You know, there is like this code of silence inside of the movement space that, we just don't talk about things that we see going wrong. And I was on the board of Justice Together, which was an organization that he started a while ago. And I was one of the people that was like, I'm not going to be a part of this because I don't understand what's happening with the money. And that was actually one of my core experiences. So I wrote that piece. People read it. His response was 75% DeRay's a really bad person. People hate him. And at the bottom, he responded to some of the content. I just haven't replied in writing. So I was on the board of Justice Together. I can't find the taxes. I'm not even saying you didn't file taxes, but I just don't see the taxes filed for the organization. He replies, hidden in the very bottom, he goes, you know what? I didn't file taxes because I returned the money. And you're like, I'm not a tax expert, but that's not how taxes work. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Right. I feel like you have to report what you got anyway.
Yeah, you got to report returning the money. Like,
and then you can report what you paid out as well. I'm saying I think that's what the white man who do my taxes said.
Right. Could you imagine if you were like, I just gave it back?
Oh my God. So Martin Luther King, Mr. Tear down the white Jesus statues, he doesn't know how taxes work. That white guy, I guess, must have some sort of get out of tax jail for free card. So it's interesting that she says, the white guy that does my taxes, he probably wouldn't do it. So why don't you if you're Miss Black Identity, why don't you get a black accountant if you think that it's that important to help black people? I'm sure that there's a lot of black accountants out there that could use the business, right? So I think that was as much of the interview that was really interesting for our purposes today. Just get rid of a couple of these stupid tabs. In any case, so last week I exposed the redirection of funds donated from the Ford Foundation, the cleverly named Black-led movement fund, towards transsexual and non-black related causes by Borealis Philanthropy. This week, the Daily Caller dug into a similar arrangement involving the California charity Thousand Currents and the Black Lives Matter Global Network. The Daily Caller's Andrew Kerr did a deep dive into the paper trail of BLMGN, $ perhaps, prompted by the train wreck of a Reddit Ask Me Anything session which we went over with the fund's managing director, Kaylee Scales, where she dodged all questions regarding where the money is going. Kerr discovered that BLMGN has spent almost $900,000 on travel, $1.6 million on consulting, and $2.1 million on personnel, accounting for 83.3% of its spending from the 2017 through 19 period, while only 6% went to BLM chapters. Best of all was an eye-popping written email response from Scales. The numbers you cite so this is her response. The numbers you cite from the annual information return from our fiscal sponsor reflect IRS required reporting categories that bear no relationship to how our programs have actually been run. These are not numbers developed by BLM Global Network Foundation. We cannot speak to how they were calculated. Mind you, that this woman, okay, hi Stormy, this woman, speaking of women, speaking of fake women, Stormy, this woman is not just the head of the BLM Global Network Foundation. She's the head of that organization that runs it, Thousand Currents. So she's actually saying that the organization that she is the managing director of doesn't calculate it reflective of how it disperses its funds. So paraphrasing to understand Scales' response, the money is being spent for the right purposes, but the numbers in our tax disclosures and financial audits don't reflect it. Kerr's article concluded by highlighting objections that caused BLM's Cincinnati chapter to separate from the national organization. The obvious question, if BLM is collecting all of this money but not spending it on activities, what's the ultimate purpose besides self-enrichment? Kerr answers this partially by showing that BLMGN had agreed as part of its partnership with Thousand Currents to pay for its services by giving some of its funds to other causes managed by their firm in Zimbabwe and South Africa. But examining the audit shows a larger purpose, building the institution through donations and reinvesting the money. In the nonprofit world, a major unspoken goal is not to fulfill the stated mission of the movement, but to turn the movement into its own self-sustaining institution. And that is exactly what BLMGN, like all other BLM groups, is doing. According to the Thousand Currents website, the relationship between BLMGN and the firm began 4 years ago in September 2016, including an announcement quietly establishing a legal partnership that included a photo of Thousand Currents, which was then called the International Development Exchange, Executive Director Rajasvini Bansali. So this is what Impex was suggesting earlier. I think it was Impex suggested earlier, or it might have been Chris. A lot of people running these organizations aren't even black themselves. Like Bansali is likely Indian, and she's not black. Okay, in fiscal year 2016, Thousand Currents spent $795,000 on grants to foreign organizations compared to $164,000 spent on their domestic counterparts. The group spent more on employee compensation, $1.4 million, office expenses, $192,000, and travel, $484,000 than they did on domestic grants. According to the same disclosure, Bansali received a loan that year with no get date given for $8,300 without either board approval or a written agreement, which she seems to have repaid in full. So she basically, from what I understand, she got an interest-free loan from this organization, and she repaid it, which, all things considered, that's entirely, if they're fine as an organization doing that, I would say fine. But if that's like a typical sort of behavior over there, I would say people ought to kind of take it with a grain of salt when you're donating to this organization, because she received a massive salary. I think her salary was $140,000. Granted, they are located in Oakland, I believe. So money doesn't go as far over there. I think like $140,000 in Oakland is basically the same as $60,000 here in Ohio, like because of the taxes and all of that. According to the same disclosure, Bansali, I read that part. In November 2018, she left Thousand Currents for the Solidaire Network, another opaque charity project of the Proteus Funds, which runs the Black Liberation Pooled Fund. This fund lists 31 groups as grantees as of 2020, but the last disclosure for Proteus only covers 2018 and does not mention any of these groups. Thousand Currents in 2017 disbursed only $28,130 to the Black Lives Matter Foundation. So this is important. This is a different foundation. This isn't BLMGN. This is BLMF. The other BLMF, because remember, the Black Led Movement Fund is also called BLMF. But this one is from Santa Clarita, California. the address listed for their address is a UPS store mailbox in Santa Clarita. The address listed for BLM Foundation President Robert Ray Barnes was last sold for $517,000, and his salary was listed at only $24,000. So that this guy is black, and he's been listed on a number of. I think this is the one report. There's no video of it, but I did see a video at a different time. You can watch that.
Goal is to find a way to bring the community and the police together so that we can live in harmony with the police.
Robert Ray Barnes is the founder of the Black Lives Matter Foundation in Santa Clarita, not associated with the Black Lives Matter movement, and therein lies the confusion. Tonight, a BuzzFeed article claims in the wake of racial protests, donors mistakenly raised more than $4 million for the local nonprofit, thinking it was going back to the Black Lives Matter Global Network, the worldwide movement that aims to end police brutality.
I've seen articles that says that I've raised $4.3 million where, I have never had anything close to that.
The BuzzFeed article does say the bulk of that money raised was frozen before it could be dispersed. Nevertheless, Barnes says he has never associated with Black Lives Matter Global Network.
I've never heard one word from anybody from Black Lives Matter.
But he says he has received donations for his foundation, although he would not disclose the amount.
I don't know whether they're doing it to support what I was doing or not. How do I know? I've been around since 2015.
Barnes says he started the Black Lives Matter Foundation in 2015 after he says his wife's ex-husband was allegedly shot and killed by an LAPD officer. Although the foundation is registered, he says he has yet to launch any programs. Instead, he says he puts money into other charities.
I'm actually proud of what we do. I'm not ashamed of it.
BuzzFeed claims many of the recent donations came from Benevity, a site that connects large corporations like Google and Apple to charities. Tonight, a disclaimer was placed on the Black Lives Matter Foundation donation page saying it had no association with BLM. And GoFundMe sent us this statement saying in part, 180 campaigns have recently raised money for the Black Lives Matter Foundation, raising $350,000. GoFundMe placed all funds on hold, and we are working with PayPal and the campaign organizers to ensure all of the money raised is transferred to the Black Lives Matter movement via their fiscal sponsor.
So if someone did not want to donate something to me, then I would gladly return. As an example, people have asked me, people have sent me checks that says Black Lives Matter, doesn't say the foundation, and I send it back.
We did reach out to the Black Lives Matter movement here in Los Angeles, but have yet to hear back. As for the Black Lives Matter Foundation, when it comes to taxes, the latest return we could find was in 2017. The foundation brought in just under $300,000. Barnes was the only employee to get paid just over $20,000. Reporting in Santa Clarita, Leslie Marin.
So yeah, I don't know what you want to make of that, but he did kind of tell a white lie, if you want to put it that way. The BLM Foundation was able to rake in $189,000 of revenue, less expenses in 2017. So that was the amount he cleared. So he had $189,000 left over. Profit, if you really look at it. Like some people say, oh, nonprofits don't make a profit. I think that's a little bit of rereading of reality. So that, like she said, is the only year for which its filing is publicly available. According to CBS Los Angeles, the BLM Foundation is unaffiliated with BLMGN, which he said, but yet both of them appear to have an affiliation with Thousand Currents. In 2017, Barnes BLM Foundation received an additional $62,000 from Thousand Currents. So they've received $28,000 in 2017, $62,000 in 2017. So in 2016 they received $28,000. Recently, with the flurry of attention to the BLM cause, the BLM Foundation and BLM Global Network appear to be fighting over donation money. In 2018, Kaylee Scales joined with Thousand Currents board at a salary of $140,000 as Bonsali was on her way out. So she left later, as stated above, and joined Proteus Fund, which I think that they have. What was that charity called? Solidaire. This was during a year when Thousand Currents grants totaled $1.1 million. Also on the board, but in unpaid capacity, is Susan Rosenberg, a former domestic terrorist who served 16 years in prison for weapons and explosives charges after being caught red-handed offloading dynamite in New Jersey in 1984. That was at a storage unit. Rosenberg had been a member of the Weather Underground Organization, Black Liberation Army, and May 19th Organization, all groups that performed terror bombings, bank robberies, and shootings in the 1970s and 1980s. Nevertheless, Rosenberg's autobiography was titled An American Radical, a political prisoner in my own country, as if she was behind bars for the mere distribution of leaflets or standing on a soapbox. So yeah, you can read the rest of this. It is already in the description, and it will be, I already put it in the chat. I'm going to put it in the chat again. And I want you guys to emphasize to people who really are into this Black Lives Matter scam that it is a scam, and that they ought to really be more, thrifty with their money. And that's about it. Donatello says the guy seems like a good fellow. I think that guy's also trying to scam some money. I mean, think about it. Is he really returning the money? How are we supposed to know? That's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm going to put back on the music before we leave. You can find me, of course, here on YouTube right now. You can find me on BitChute, Minds.com, Subscribestar, Gab, and Library. Join me on Library, and I'll talk to you later.